Hello everyone, this is Glenn Hodges. Welcome to Chattanooga Self-Improvement Meetup, a mastermind group where we listen, ask questions, comment, and learn in an effort to help make each of us to be the best version of ourselves, thus helping to make the world to be a better place in which to live. Our guest speaker today is Ron Cooper, CEO of the Cooper Culture and former Air Force fighter pilot. Ron is the founder of the Cooper Culture, a business dedicated to helping organizations increase their personal productivity and efficiency through personality strengths and principled leadership. Our guest speaker today is Ron Cooper, CEO of the Cooper Culture and former Air Force fighter pilot. Ron is the founder of the Cooper Culture, a business dedicated to helping organizations increase their personal productivity and efficiency through personality strengths and principled leadership. The Cooper Culture assesses organizational strengths employing DISC human behavior attributes, then customizes training to help organizations achieve or maintain high performance. Ron is a human behavior consultant certified through Personality Insights Incorporated and People Keys. Ron is leveraging over 30 years of active duty in the U.S. Air Force as a fighter pilot with command experience and industry executive experience to help people and organizations achieve their full potential. Ron has led organizations of 200 plus people and is currently mentoring and coaching others to help them achieve their full potential. He has published numerous leadership and organizational articles for trade magazines. He is the co-author of the best-selling book, Discover Your Team's Potential. Okay, Ron, it's all yours, buddy. Ron and Marty Cooper.
Glenn, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with your group. We are amongst entrepreneurs. That's very important to me. And entrepreneurs, Dan, thank you for just walking us through briefly what you very recently went through. I too, Marty and I together are problem solvers. That I just enjoy a challenge. There is an opportunity in everything. There is nothing that is too large to take on, nothing that does not have multiple solutions. It's just a matter of thinking into and thinking through to come up with a solution. But I thought what I'd do today, Marty is my consummate partner. And for those of you that may not be aware, I've known Marty for about 55 years. We've been married for about 52 of those 55 years. And we love life together. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about the life of a fighter pilot and just walk through a little bit of stuff. My focus is not rearward. I am not hung up on life, what was as a fighter pilot. I am not now. But I think it is useful maybe to just think about the traits. A fighter pilot traits that are usable to take on in today's world. You can, you'll discern quickly, particularly Kelly, personality people well, those of us who take the time to study personalities, that, I tend to talk fast. I have, some people describe me as having a command voice, and that can be a huge turnoff to some people. I've got to moderate myself around different people. And so for those who are quiet, reserved, introverted, and so forth, I've got to be able to discern that quickly and be willing to adapt. You'll learn very quickly that if you haven't noticed it already, Marty and I are very opposite, but in complementary ways. And so Marty will frequently tell me, hey, throttle back, buddy. You're over the top with whatever. And so we work very well together. But let me just, I'll describe very briefly some of the traits of a fighter pilot. And you don't have to be literally a fighter pilot to have a mindset, but you'll be able to identify with a lot of what I say. I'm just a kind of a free flow conversation as I think of different things. But Our missions, a day mission would frequently start out with intelligence. And we would brief with intelligence to learn what the target is, what the defenses are in the area. One of the very first things is the intelligence briefing will start at whatever time it is. Don't ever come late. And if you're not there 15 minutes prior, you're late. Now, I know that what I just said with the veracity at which I said it can be a turnoff to some people, because I know some people will say, yeah, I'm always 5 minutes late, but you know, hey, at least I got there. Well, the military mindset is if the briefing starts, let's just say 0400, that's 4 a.m., you know, a show of not later than 3:45 is appropriate. And I want you to be mentally prepared that, you know, forget about whatever, you know, may have occurred yesterday and so forth. Be mentally prepared to understand what the target is, what the defenses are in the area and so forth. We walk away from that briefing and we go into a flight briefing. Our flights are anywhere from 2 to 4 aircraft, known as 2-ship or 4-ship. I flew the F-4, the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom. And that is a tandem cockpit, that is front and back. The pilot is in the front, the WSO, Weapon Systems Operator, is in the back seat. Although as an instructor pilot, I was qualified to fly in both front and back seat. But the briefing would start at a very specific time. And once again, the military mindset is that you show up on time, you have all preliminaries done, and you're ready to go, you're paying attention. And so we brief exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to get into and out of the target area. The mindset is that we all of us, 4 or 8 of us, will return home. There's never a mindset of, well, what if? However, I will say that in the intelligence briefing, they would always tell us that if you're shot down, this is what you need to do, and how to best defend yourself and so forth. The military mindset is largely, and mine definitely was, I will never get shot down. However, if I am shot down, you won't capture me. If you do capture me, it won't be for long. And I will find a way to get out. My mindset is going to carry me through this. And in the extremely unlikely event I am held captive for a long period of time, I will return home. And so that's just a mindset that some of us have. And some people may view that as being arrogant, unrealistic, but I think it's a mindset that we have to have. That's just how I approach life, and it's a mindset that I carry into our business. But we brief the mission and the preliminaries. We have what we call as a step time. That is, we're going to step to the aircraft at a certain time, and then we have a start engine time. Here's something very important that we, in the briefing, we synchronize our watches, or maybe we call it timepieces, to the second. And I would say that it's coming up on 0803. I'll give you a hack, 0803. The mindset is we are all synchronized in our timing. And when I say that our check-in time prior to start engines, I designate that time. And the military mindset is the discipline, you are ready. Your radio is up and you are ready for the check-in. So at this point, let's just assume that my call sign is Olympia. At the designated time, I'm going to say, Olympia, check. Now, right here, one of the very first things of how is this flight going to go is the check-in. And in a 4-ship flight, we have Olympia 2, in this case, Olympia is the call sign, Olympia 2, Olympia 3, Olympia 4. When I check in, if I'm the flight lead, I get on the radio and I say, Olympia, check. And what I'm expecting to hear is a very crisp 2, 3, 4. And what I just said is the number 2 is spelled as if it's TWOP. Very sharp and crisp. If I get that, we're off to a great start. And what we're saying with that is the discipline, the sharpness with which we respond on the radio is a mindset of going into this flight that, yep, we are very attentive and we're very alert to the discipline and the mindset, the overall culture of the flight. So the engines have started, we're ready to taxi, and I'll make a call somewhat similar to a ground control. This is Olympia, flight of 4, ready to taxi. And I get clearance to taxi, go to the end of the runway. Now, okay, let me back up just mentally a little bit. First off, we pre-flight the aircraft, and we make sure that the crew chief, the weapons loader, everything has everything right for us. And the older the aircraft is, there's possibility of hydraulic leaks and so forth. So we are checking. It's a last minute check to make sure that everything is put together correctly. We have a very professional crew of maintenance folks who do their individual jobs to make sure the weapons that are loaded are the ones who are called for the target in question. If I'm on an air-to-air mission, I have missiles loaded, predominantly radar and heat-seeking, radar-guided and heat-seeking missiles. If I'm on a bombing mission, I have a very specific type of bomb that I've got that has to be loaded. So I'm making sure that that communication, and again, communication all the way through. So this process of communication to make sure the weapons are loaded correctly started perhaps 12 hours before, or even longer. But it's required to have the weapons loaded correctly. I've got fuel in the aircraft. The aircraft has been maintained, and we're ready to go. So moving on, we're taxiing out to the end of the runway. The F4 has what we call an end of runway check. And that's the last check with maintenance folks to make sure that everything is ready to go, no hydraulic leaks. Every once in a while, it will happen that the folks at the end of the runway will notice something that is not airworthy about the aircraft, and some of those things can be fixed right there prior to takeoff, and others will necessitate a ground abort. But let's assume that the end of runway check was successful, and now we're ready to get on the runway. So now I'm making a call to the air traffic controller in the tower saying, Olympia flight ready for takeoff. And I'll get a call back that says, Olympia cleared to taxi onto the runway and hold. And so I've got the flight of 4 going onto the runway. Let's just assume that I briefed a formation takeoff. One of the questions that came up last week is, how close are we to each other? How close are we to target and so forth? In a formation takeoff, we are about 10 feet apart. And so what I'm doing with the formation takeoff, we align ourselves on the runway with the spacing that we need for this formation takeoff. And again, we're about 10 feet apart. And so at this point, we're just mentally ready. We know we're going to have a formation takeoff. I change frequencies. I call for the flight to be on the frequency we need for the takeoff. And I might say, run them up. And that's powering the engines up to perhaps 85%, and doing a last minute check inside the cockpit. And then I'll, over the radio, I'll say, brakes. Now, that's numbers 1 and 2 who are going to be in the formation takeoff. We release brakes simultaneously, and then over the radio, I'll say, burners now. Burners being afterburners. And so I advance the throttle forward and left and into the detent. And in the F4, the 2 engines, the afterburners light is what we call soft light. That is an incremental light, so there's not a big bang. But the 2 afterburners, the 2 engines ignite. The afterburners are on. We're accelerating down the runway. And at approximately 150 knots, I rotate the stick back. The nose of the aircraft comes up. In my peripheral vision, I'm looking at the number 2 aircraft to make certain that he is in the formation position where he's supposed to be. And I've got to be steady enough that when I rotate, the nose of the aircraft will be lifting off in about 2 seconds later. And the pilot of the #2 aircraft has got to be steady enough that he knows that just to stay with me. So about 10 feet or so off the ground, I will raise my landing gear, and then shortly after that, raise the flaps. In a 4-ship flight, the numbers 3 and 4 do the same thing. They're a formation takeoff, and it's incumbent on what's known as the element lead, that's the #3 aircraft, to know how to join up shortly after takeoff. So although we took off in two ships, we will join up as a 4-ship and depart the traffic pattern in accordance with air route traffic control procedures. And then as we're accelerating to about 350 knots, and we climb at that speed and then climb to whatever altitude to which we're assigned. At the altitude, and we're approaching the hostile territory, I will put people in what was then known as a fluid 4 formation. I say go tactical. So there is in the military, we have a lookout discipline. We have a radar in the aircraft, but we have our eyeballs as well, that every one of us, all 8 of us, have an assigned lookout area. So we're looking in the radar for aircraft. We're also looking outside visually that with this lookout discipline, we are looking out for each other. And so the front seater has a visual span. The back seater in each aircraft also has a visual span. And we look inside the radar periodically, but we are entering the enemy territory, and I'll say, arm them up. And then we have what we call in the aircraft a master arm switch. And we would arm up the weapons that we're carrying, and we would go into the enemy territory ready to go to the target. In the military, you could be assigned one of 2 missions in a fighter. That if you are air to air, you may be flying what's known as a CAP, C-A-P, Combat Air Patrol, the purpose of which is an air defense role. The other role that you may take is if you're loaded with weapons, you're likely going to be flying at a lower altitude, could be literally 100 feet off the ground, and you have an assigned mission to attack a specific target. And many times, the attacks that are pre-planned could be as many as 32 or so aircraft going in are involved in a strike package, some of which are weapons that go in to attack a target. Others of us are in the air-to-air role. So I was trained, and many of us in the F4 were trained both air-to-air and air-to-ground. But in the case where there was an air-to-ground mission, we would frequently go in at low altitude, and that is 100 feet, and we would be flying in at 450 to 500 knots, and hopefully flying under radar control to where the adversary, the enemy, would not be able to see us. But we would have the element of surprise, and we would attack the target. There would be perhaps 8 to 12 aircraft with weapons that would, on precise timing, and that's the importance of synchronized watches, that you're always looking and you're always aware of the time, you're always aware of the aircraft performance. I'm going to go back mentally just a little bit. We frequently say at step time, well, let's go out and strap the jet on. What we mean by that is I know my aircraft well enough, and it's not a lot different than you going into your vehicle, truck, or otherwise. And you know that equipment, you know that vehicle well enough that I'm at home in this. I know how it's performing. I don't necessarily have to look at the instruments inside all the time. But that's what we're saying, that when we are in the aircraft going to the target, we can just know by the feel, the seat of our pants, how things are performing. And so the timing of being on the target, if you're carrying bombs, has to be precise, because it's a surprise attack, but it's also a mass bombing attack on various targets. Everything has to be timed exactly right. If it's not timed, you could have a mid-air collision amongst the friendly forces. So timing is absolutely critical, all a part of the military mindset. So I'm going into the target. I know what to expect for enemy defenses, whether I am air to ground or air to air. And I know the exact timing I need. I also have to be very aware of the fuel I have. I know before I enter the combat area how much fuel I need to have to get back home, because I could be traveling thousands of miles to get to the target area. And I know that I can only loiter, we call it, a specific amount of time to have enough gas to return home. I do need to know if I have a tanker up such that if things aren't going exactly as I had planned, that I've got a tanker that I can hook up to. But while I'm in the target area, I'm always thinking, and here's where the military mindset comes in. And Kelly, you'll know what I'm saying when I say that, you know, those of us with a very pervasive type A mindset, I'm always thinking ahead, that I know exactly what I'm going to do, whatever occurs to me in the target area, that we have everything as planned as we can, but stuff happens. And so for the military mindset is, no matter what happens in the target area, I know what I'm going to do because I'm always thinking ahead. And now I'm talking about, this could be micro thoughts, microseconds of thought, that I'm always thinking ahead, what if? And so the what if is never, what if I get shot down, but rather, okay, I need to bring all my aircraft, all the people back home. I need to attack this target. And everything is, well, what if the weather? What if enemy air defenses? What if AAA, anti-aircraft artillery, any of that nature is in the area? I have to know right now how to adjust, because at 500 knots, 500 miles an hour, I don't have a lot of time to think about it. So I'm always thinking ahead about these things. I release my ordnance, or if I'm in a combat air patrol, I am flying in my specified area. I know the lookout, and this attack profile might, we're in the enemy territory, possibly 20, 25 minutes, and then we're coming home. In the context of either a pre-planned tanker rendezvous, as we call it, which would be to meet up with a larger aircraft, KC-10, KC-135. I'm going to refuel on the way home. The tanker is flying at 310 knots nominally. And so based on where I am, I need to know where the tanker is. So I'm talking probably with an airborne weapons and control center who has a larger area radar than I do. They will tell me where the tanker is, and I know based on the parameters of which I know how to rejoin the tanker. In the perfect rejoin, the tanker is out in front of me. At one point, I'll only know where that tanker is looking at the radar. But after that, when the tanker is perhaps 7, 8, 10 miles, depending on the weather visibility, I've got to be able to transition to the eyeballs looking at the tanker. And so I'm flying my aircraft at the speed. I've got the geometry set up such that we have a successful rendezvous. And I'm going to come in to about 10 feet behind the tanker to refuel. And so it's incumbent on the pilot to be steady, pretty obviously, that I am about 10 feet behind the tanker. The tanker has lowered the boom, and the boom is a nozzle that plugs into my aircraft, the refueling door, and plugs into the aircraft, and I take fuel. So I've got to know instantaneously with my mind and the eyeballs that exactly what airspeed I need to have, and the rendezvous is set up that I don't, what we call, overrun the tanker if I'm going too fast. That is, I get out in front of the tanker. I don't want for that to happen, but should it happen, I know exactly what to do. And safe separation so I'm not running into the tanker. But I want to position myself as we refuel one aircraft at a time. Normally it's in the order of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I'm underneath, but I've got to be aware of not only my fuel, but the fuel of every aircraft in my flight so that we know exactly where we are. Should I have a little more fuel than somebody else, I may opt to tell number 3, just an example, you go in first and refuel. But all of this has to be done in a not only an orderly manner, but you got to have smooth enough hands that you're underneath the tanker flying literally 10 feet or so apart, that we cannot afford to have missed refueling opportunities, meaning you're not steady enough with your hands and aircraft such that the boomer, and here we're talking about 2 different people. You've got the guy inside the tanker who's flying the boom, and he literally has a stick. He's steadying the boom. I have to be steady enough with my hands that we're each steady, that I am approaching the aircraft from 30 feet, 25 feet, 20 feet, 15, 10, and I need to know exactly where to stop so that the boomer can plug me with the boom. Deborah, do you have a question? Yeah. Okay, from here, we are plugged in, and we have to be steady while we're taking on what could be 20,000 or so pounds of fuel. And I don't recall exactly what the pumping rate of the fuel is of the tanker, but we may have to stay steady for 7 to 10 minutes to get the full amount of fuel. So it's a matter of you got to be steady hands, steady mind, and there are many times we do this at night. And so we have what we call director lights under the tanker, and we have to know exactly where we are. And so this is all a matter of training and personal confidence that, yes, I can be under the aircraft 20 feet away at night, and I'm not going to run into you, any of those kind of things. So I and the other 3 aircraft have refueled, and we're ready to go wherever we're going, whether it's back home into a target area or wherever. And we are checking in, and we go through multiple frequencies frequently on the radio. So here's another part of discipline. I say, as the lead aircraft, Olympia, go frequency 267.3. And so you say it one time, and everybody's expected to go to frequency 267.3. And so I say again, Olympia check, 2, 3, 4. It's just incumbent, it's expected that everyone heard exactly what the frequency is. You can imagine, oh my gosh, what if somebody got a number wrong, didn't hear it correctly, and now I only have, I have something less than 4 aircraft on the same frequency. So where is the other aircraft? You know, or where are the aircraft that are not on frequency? So we have ways to accommodate that, but let's just say that it's very important that I speak clearly. The communication within has to be precise, and it's not a matter of, well, hey, lead, what did you say? No, we're listening, and to fully understand and appreciate the radio chatter that's ongoing, I would have to get for you a recording. But that recording frequently has chatter that I'm not the only one on that frequency. There are others, and I have to know exactly who's saying what to me and within the flight. And I'm aware of, but I have to know that other chatter is not necessarily being directed to me. And I'm going to go back to being in the target area. If I am on an air-to-air or the combat air patrol mission, I am listening for information that says bandits, Olympia, bandits, you're 10 o'clock at 20 miles. So what that's saying to me is the bandit is an enemy aircraft, And that aircraft is at my 10 o'clock position. We always reference positions, or frequently reference positions as a clock. So it's at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever clock position. Sometimes we'll get information bearing BEA or ING, and that is a degrees off our nose, so that we know where to look. But that's the kind of thing that we must be on the lookout and be ready for anything that happens. So now I'm going to transition to, let's say we're en route to home. Well, I've got the flight of 4, and hopefully I have all the aircraft that I took into the target area. I do know what it is to go into a target area with 4 aircraft and come back with less than 4. One of our aircraft has been shot down, and the names of those are on the Vietnam Wall. But we are en route to home, and we are, let's just say we come up on what we call initial, and we pitch out, we land, and frequently at the end of the flight, we just know to expect each other to, a successful mission. We went into this mission with the mindset that we're all coming back together. We'll high five each other. We'll go back into the room, into the into the squadron to debrief what went well, what can we do better, and then frequently that night we'll go to the club, we'll celebrate, and do stuff that's on the classified part of my resume that I no longer do. And I will tell you that Kelly, you can identify with this, that there's some of us who man, we're gonna party hard. And that's just a part of the mindset, the fighter pilot mindset. And yes, we've done things that are, pretty incredibly stupid, but things such as throwing people over the bar. And we did carrier landings, the Air Force version of carrier landings, and that is we would align tables in the bar, and we would throw water on the table so that we'd have a surface to which we can slide. And you get a running start. You have 2 guys holding the tablecloth at the end of the table. And the purpose of that is to get a running start. You slide on the table and you hook your feet onto the tablecloth. That is known as a successful table engagement. The other thing we would do, and there are just too many things to tell for the amount of time we have, there would be a bar in the ceiling of the club, and the real men would hang by their feet. That bar would have maybe, who knows, a 10-inch spacing from the ceiling to hang down, and you jump up, you get your hands around that bar, and you turn yourself inverted. You put your feet into the bar and you hang with your feet, just hanging onto the bar. And how many people do you think have come down on their head, been injured? Yep. There are several of us who had that happen, but it's just part of the fighter pilot nonsense that call it the entrepreneurial attitude, but that's just part of the mindset. Now, let me bring this in for a landing and just say that you've gotten a little bit of a glimpse into what some of us are. And sitting beside me, here's Marty laughing about some of the stuff. Marty is the quiet, gentle spirit who would say something like, "Oh my gosh, I can picture everything you're saying. And just don't try that stuff at the house." And so I request permission to live at the house, and Marty will authorize me to live with her on a case-by-case basis. So let me just bring it in for a landing and say that, that's just a little bit of the fighter pilot mindset. But I love being with entrepreneurs like I'm sensing each one of you is. Man, let's go for it. There's no problem too tough to solve. Everything in our life is an opportunity. Corey, I've had a great opportunity. We're on a great start with podcasts. I'm learning about you. Deborah, Kelly, I'm looking forward to studying with you the personality traits. Dan, I'm learning about you being an entrepreneur. Man, that's just great. Bob, I know a little bit about you, and some things that you're doing. Deborah, I want to learn more about you, and Marcia, and you as well. So let me just say that I can go on for a while, but Marty, come on. I've just kind of taken over here, but here's Marty with a very quiet spirit. I will say from her perspective, she has told me that a lot of things I'm saying right now, she just did not have the full appreciation of. And I'm not going to tell you that I felt that I was ever, radically in danger. Yes, I had bullets flying all around me and so forth and so on, but I'm not going to try to highlight, glorify any part of that. I feel very fortunate that I was not shot down. Actually, I never took a hit in the aircraft. I was just very fortunate. But as I was telling Marty about all this, in the Vietnam era, she didn't know. We would send videotapes or audio tapes to each other and be 2 weeks apart and so forth. But Marty, I've talked way too long. Come on in and add your perspective to it.
No, from the time I met Ron, I realized that he was a person that had a strong personality and set goals and really worked at it. One funny little thing, when he was in Del Rio, Texas, in pilot training, we did emergency procedures seat. And so I would read the question about emergency procedure and he would give me the answer. So I knew by that I never worried about him. I knew that he knew how to fly and he was very good at that. And nothing would happen to him. I never had that thought. But throughout our marriage, he had everything that he takes on, he does just like he studied and took on with the Air Force.
No, and let me just add this, a very brief explanation. In the aircraft, we have what we call bold-face procedures. There are things that we must know instinctively. We have to have those things memorized. That's the bold-face. So Marty and I would what we call chair fly, and Marty would pose a situation that whatever happened to me in the aircraft, and I would repeat to her the bold-face procedure. So we call that chair flying. And so to a degree, Marty was flying right along with me. And so she was able to experience whether she liked it or not, but I was absolutely obsessed, focused that I am going to be the best I can be. I was very fortunate to graduate from pilot training, the top graduate, and I did get the leadership award. And I don't say any of that to flaunt myself. It's just the opportunities that presented. So let me just bring it in for a landing here. I've done way too much talking, and I am very interested in learning from each of you.
I just want to say one thing. Ron says I'm an introvert, but I have learned to become very independent and not be controlled by a strong personality.
Kelly, I think you can identify with that one, right?
I have to say I have never been drunk nor done any of these other hijinks that you all mentioned. So I just feel I have to clear my reputation to some extent. But I married a peacemaker, and while I like a good dig in, he avoids conflict at all costs. And what we've learned is, just like you said about you and Marty, we are complementary opposites. And I've been thankful for the balance, because while I'm certainly no fighter pilot mentality, there are times when I just want to go to battle, and he just reminds me, is that really where you want to die? Is that your hill? So Marty, we need people like you to bring us back to a more centered place, for sure.
Well, the interesting thing is, I didn't realize it, but
I do want to say one time, real quick, Ron said, Marty, you just depend on me too much. So I went, great, I can become a little more independent. So Ron, you got it. I'm going to become a little more independent.
Ron, I was about to say I didn't realize it, but as you were sharing some of the after-flight things that took place, I realized that I may have qualified to have been a fighter pilot. It sounded like some of the exercises that we had in the frat house. As most of you know, I've been very honest and said that I have a degree in journalism, but my real major was frat life, and I did quite well at it. And we did some strange things with tables in the frat house, especially in the basement. Uh, Ron, looking at the procedures that you shared with us, the pre-flight and the debriefing and things of that nature, how do you teach people to take the fighter pilot mindset and use it in the business world?
Yeah, that's a very important question, Glenn. And Kelly, you might be able to identify with me in this. I know being a similar personality, there's a part of the military then that says big, bold, and burly. And if we're going to attack the hill, if we're going to attack this target, then you go for it. I'm in charge, and what I say, is the law, so to speak. Now, here's where I try to temper myself, and I'm going to slow down intentionally here because I know that some people on this call could say, oh my gosh, Ron Cooper scares me. I don't think I could ever exist around this guy because of, and then fill in the blank. Glenn, we as leaders have to know our people. We have to be able to adapt to them. Now, I do think that one thing that is a fighter pilot mindset that we can carry through is, and I think Dan exemplified this in his opening remarks, that I am resolved. There is no problem that is going to overtake me. That's a resolve, that's a mindset that I have because I took from my fighter pilot experience critical thinking. From inside the cockpit, I am constantly assessing the aircraft performance, the target area, my fuel, everything. I can't afford to take minutes to assess all of that when I have to process it within seconds. So, critical thinking, what are the facts and factors I need to know to be able to make an informed decision? I may only have seconds to make that informed decision, but that's what I may be called to do. I have told people sometimes in the past, I do not need calendars or committees to make some decisions. As a good leader, I can deviate from the arrogant, brash, turn off personality by saying, I just need your input. Rich, Marcia, Corey, Bob, Kelly, Glenn, Marty, Aram, I really need for us to come together. I know your individual strengths and I need your perspective on this, that I'm not approaching this in a brash, obnoxious way, but I need your input. And so in the boardroom, Glenn, I can assess pretty quickly because I've been there some attitudes that, hey, it's my way and you're just here to listen and do, as opposed to, and well, am I really a viable part of this team? And it's a matter of how you treat me. Glenn, there's a long teaching that goes with that, but that's a part of just life in the military mindset that I have learned, and we can help others as long as I have had to learn to do. I am trainable and coachable.
I have one other question, and then we need to get everybody else involved in the mastermind. But one of the things that I know with some of the similar studies that you and I have done over the last several years, that we talk about the importance of transparency and authenticity. And you don't think of that in the military world, but yet I think it's possible that it does have a place. So how do you use it in the military world, and how do you draw the line to be the man in charge, but yet be authentic and be able to be relatable to those you're leading?
No, and that's a very important question, Glenn. Being vulnerable and transparent. I do think there is a place for that, irrespective of where you are, whether you have any military experience or not. I can, in the context of being vulnerable, spend too much time dwelling on the past. that I am. And, you know, I'm focused on the past. I can tell you just very briefly, as a preteen, I knew that I was dumb, stupid, socially awkward. My dating life was a one and done. Hey, I don't know that I'm going to be much of anything. And so I don't need to dwell hours and hours on that in the boardroom, in the workplace, just saying what I used to be. But I think in the context of being vulnerable, and it's in the context of being self-aware, yep, this is what I used to be. I overcame this. And let me just say very briefly, that's what our podcast of Overcomers Overcoming is about. What challenges in life have you overcome or are in the process of overcoming? I have overcome a lot of my preteen life of just one word inadequacies by virtue of 4 men who mentored me, took the time to help me over my challenges. And they were not in a formal role of mentoring. It's just that each one of these 4 men had a very specific part in my life to help me overcome my past. So vulnerability and transparency, Glenn, I think there is a place for that. And that is just a brief mention that, okay, I am weak in whatever areas I'm weak. Okay, one of those areas where I am weak is organization. Marty is a consummate organizer. I can walk into a room, and if the whiteboard is filled with all kinds of stuff that needs to be, man, how do we make order out of this? I can almost tell you that I'm not the right person for this. I want to be in the room, but I need Marty. I need others of you in the room with me to help sort stuff out, prioritize, and organize. That's one of my weaknesses. So in the book of which I co-authored, it's Selecting the Right Team. And you must know yourself. And that's in the context, Glenn, of being vulnerable and transparent. Hey, I'm weak in, I don't have a great talent in. I need each one of you to be on my team because you are filling my weakness. That's how Marty and I are very complementary to each other. But as we have very effective teams, we are complementary to each other. Glenn, that's that can be a topic of a lot more discussion, but when is it appropriate and to what degree is vulnerability and transparency? But I think it's a matter of being confident in yourself to know that my strengths are here, but I also have these weaknesses. I need the rest of you to be on my team to complement me where I'm weak so that we have the best team formed. That's a long answer to a quick question, Glenn.
Thanks a lot. Now, Bob Ritchie, you had sent me a text. Did we kind of get your question covered? I think I'd kind of asked the question before I read your message in the chat box. Did you have another comment or want to ask Ron another question?
Well, that's what one of the things that I was kind of trying to get back, circle around to is with all these procedures and everything, and how do you realistically relate this to business situations so that if I'm struggling with something, maybe something as simple as procrastination, how do you relate these experiences and help others overcome them?
Bob, very, very, very applicable question for comment. Bob, what I would do as you and I interact at the onset, I would want to develop a very positive rapport with you, which then I hope develops into a meaningful relationship. Because I have experience in what I do does not automatically qualify me as being the best person for you. But Bob, if we were to be able to effectively interact with each other, develop a very trusting relationship, I would want to know, well, Bob, can you tell me a little bit more about why you procrastinate? Why do you not just do what needs to be done? I mean, the fact that you mentioned procrastinate tells me that you know something needs to be done, but for some reason you're not doing it. I ask open-ended questions, Bob, and I get your response and I get insight into you. how you answer that question. And so this is a form of coaching, Bob, that I would like to know more about you. There is a possibility you have a hang up somewhere in life. I will just tell you, Bob, that all of us have various hang ups, something said to us in the past, maybe a failing of the past. Any number of those things might be the core reason we are procrastinating. But there's not necessarily a quick solution or remedy or reason for these things happening. But Bob, let's say I kind of read you as maybe a little bit of an introverted kind of person. I don't know you real well, but I need to adapt to you. And as you feel comfortable with me, and you can trust me, we can get to the root of different things. And I can almost promise you, everybody who is not performing at their potential has something in the background. Bob, that's just a very quick answer, or let's say a response. But can you identify with what I'm saying?
To a degree, I guess my concern or issue with is, I've been working for a lot of different companies in the past, tried running one a couple of times, and it seems to be, I have yet to find but a few managers that basically are accepting, if you want to call it that, or are willing to listen and ask questions of their employees. They're in charge, and it's their way or the highway a lot of times. Very few, like I said, very few
Bob,
over the years.
Bob, you mentioned one word that is absolutely huge. Do I accept Bob Ritchie? And I can tell you that, but you'll know right away if I do. And so I'm going to tell you, Bob, that early in my life that I didn't feel people accepted me. And there's some people right now who do not accept me. The acceptance is a huge aspect in relationships. And do I accept you, Bob, your strengths and everything about you? And if I come across as just being brash, arrogant, and uncaring, doesn't matter what I say, your perception of me is going to will be what matters most. As I said in one, well, no, I didn't say it today, last night, but there's some leaders who say they have an open door policy, come on in, let's talk. But that, well, no matter what I say, if I have even a constructive comment, you're going to think something less of me. So I'm not about to say anything to you. And Bob, those are some of the things, but you're absolutely right. And I can discern this from you, that your underlying question without maybe verbalizing it is, do you accept me? And that is very, very important. And implicit in my response is, if I do say I accept you, then in what way do I demonstrate that? Do I care enough about you to get to know Bob? And I hope the answer to that is yes. Is that getting a little bit closer, Bob?
I guess to a degree. Like I said, I've met a lot of different folks, but they talk one way but they don't seem to, I guess, exude that kind of open relationship.
I understand exactly what you're saying, Bob. And frequently what I would ask you is, Bob, if you could explain the perfect environment, perfect people, that culture that is just perfect for Bob, how would you explain that, Bob? Maybe even address that now.
Well, I think the basic perfect, I don't think there is a perfect culture, but I would say one that, to a large degree, everybody does communicate and listens. And, it's like not listening with both ears, not with one ear.
Okay, and and you're right, nothing's perfect. But Bob, if I were to ask you, what is the kind of culture, work culture, to which you feel, I really do enjoy going in, that I'm happy at home, I'm happy at work, and I would ask you further that, okay, well, Bob, based on what you described, can you tell me, if not by name, how is everything working at where you are relative to the good, productive, trusting environment you just described? And you would give me a response to that, Bob. And it takes time to work through this. And so part of my military mindset is, man, and Kelly knows this very well. Hey, let's get to the bottom line. Let's don't waste time with a bunch of frou-frou. But Bob would say, well, come on, man. Let's do talks and stuff. That's how I need to adapt to you, Bob. And can I do that effectively? So that's some of the approach that I take, Bob. If you and I were to interact this way, would I be getting closer to addressing some of your concerns?
Yeah, I think so.
But Bob, that's the kind of culture that we help to provide. And if the leadership is willing, we can help assess just where things are. And I would say, I wouldn't necessarily mention Bob by name, but well, here's some of the insights I have, folks, that I've heard comments. My assessment is you're not communicating well, and there's a reason for that. It seems to me that people don't trust each other, and there's some reason for that. That's all a part of a very healthy work culture, Bob. And am I willing to take the time to look into all of this? And over a period of time, Marty and I feel, have a talent, as every one of you do, that we can pretty well assess, at least have an idea of those things that you may want to consider addressing, so that you have a very productive work culture. Again, if you're happy at work, you're productive and you're living to your potential, and I've got an environment where, yes, you really do enjoy coming to work, I'm going to send you home happy, and I'll never intrude on your home life, but I want you to know that I'm available should anything arise at home, such that I can help you there. I want to devote a part of my time to help you at home, because I know that when there is continuity and harmony in the workplace, home, and if you also participate in church, that when all three of those organizations are in harmony and congruency, there's a pretty good chance that your life is going to be as balanced as it can be. Those are just some of the things that I strive for, Bob.
Yeah, if we could move along, let's get some more people involved. Maybe we could arrange for Bob, you and Ron to maybe have a private conversation sometime. Dan Hall, discipline is one of the things that we've really, I think, without identifying it per se, that is what Ron's been talking about a lot. So that should kind of ring a bell with you. It should resonate. What are your thoughts, or do you have a question for Ron?
Yeah, actually both. Glenn, I think you're absolutely correct, and I'm sure you know how much all this resonates with me. Ron, I really appreciate the energy here, the fast talking, the to the point, critical thinking, and there were a few words that really stuck out to me from the beginning. Intelligence, don't ever be late, be mentally prepared, critical thinking, I won't be shot down, I won't be captured, I will return home. It's a mental state that a lot of entrepreneurs have too, that we share. And the energy level is it's up there. Okay. It seems to me that you're a person that you expect excellence. And my question is, how does that play out in your personal life, with your personal relationships, maybe your business relationships? Because typically, I have expectations, for example, and I've found that when my expectations are way up here, unmet expectations often cause disappointment. So I have to be very selective with who I spend my time with, who I hang out with. And of course, I understand sensory acuity and we adjust to who we're around. But with such high expectations, how does that play out in your personal life with your relationships and so forth?
Dan, that's a very applicable question. And I think I would work with you by saying that ask you, are your expectations of your employees based on you, your personality, your talents, and so forth? Or are you trying to maximize that individual's potential? In other words, that individual, your strengths are, your talents are, and fill in the blanks with that. I will tell you, Dan, that I too I've had to deal with this or reckon with this. And that is, yes, my expectation is, my standards are, and so forth. And I hope you will align yourself with those. But I do want to assess everyone at their potential. And that's individual. That's Dan, that's Corey, Kelly, Marcia, everybody on this call. Do I know you individually, and are you performing at your potential? And if you are not, let's talk about it. And as I said earlier in my discussion with Bob, it's very possible that, man, I tell you what, Dan, I've never told you this before, but now that I have a sense that you genuinely care, here's something that's happened in my background, and it has stayed with me all throughout my life. And I have a hard time getting over this. And quite honestly, Dan, it is affecting me. And I've never felt comfortable discussing it with anybody because I just know you may think something less of me and so forth. So Dan, I know that everyone being an individual, and I sense that you know it very well as well, that those of us that are fast talkers, man, I demand perfection of myself. Therefore, why shouldn't I demand it of you? Yes, I need to be very careful with those who are introverts, and I can intimidate people. And I've been told that. I don't want to do that. So I do want to very effectively adapt to the people who are introverts, slower talkers. They, I mentioned one at a time, gosh, why start an email out with Happy Tuesday? Man, that's just wasted time and words. But yet, there's some people who want that. Man, come on, don't take me right to the bottom line. Look, let's talk about flowers. How about that picture I've got on the wall? Let's talk about that a little bit. Are you willing to do that? And so, Dan, I have had to learn, and I'm still learning, be willing to adapt ourselves to other people. And I think that's just one aspect of effective leadership. So Dan, I don't want to dominate and go on rambling, but there's just some thoughts that you and I can cultivate to a very useful end, perhaps one-on-one.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks. I appreciate that. I think it's definitely self-awareness and good stuff. I appreciate that.
Rick and Marcia,
you're welcome, Dan. Yeah.
Look like you might have a question or a thought there.
Well, first off, I want to thank you, Ron, for your service to your country. I think all of us here are aware of that. But for me, it's a little bit more personal because I spent 15 years, excuse me, touring military bases worldwide with a show we had developed called Letters from the Front. And we stayed in billeting, and it was a wonderful life. And the reason that I mention that is, and besides that, the military audience is the best audience in the world. They're the most appreciative. And, but all military bases, and of course, setting the show up, and every place that we set up was completely different because usually we were using a movie theater type of a setting. And I say that because we brought our basic crew, but then we got military personnel to help us load in and load out. And one of the things that I discovered was that in the military, you don't last very long unless you have a really can-do attitude. And, of course, you've got the ones that are just going to do their 4 years, but the ones that are in there for the long haul, they have can-do attitudes. And once I got back out into corporate world again after the touring years, I realized, I think particularly in this day and time, a can-do attitude is less prevalent. I am a baby boomer, and we were raised with that kind of independence. You know, I can do it. I can take care of it. But I find now that so many of the young people, that attitude is very foreign to them. And so could you address that a little bit, the difference in generational attitudes and also coming out of the military and dealing with more of a corporate attitude of, well, we'll get it done when it gets done, or whatever the attitude is?
No, it's a very applicable question, Marcia. And I'm going to tell you up front that I am still learning, you know, the Gen X, Y, Z, millennials. And so I don't want to come across that, man, I've got these different folks figured out. But I will tell you that, I don't know, it just seems that a mindset that, and maybe you need to learn how to shape the mindset dependent on the gen whatever. You can tell by looking at me, I'm a baby boomer. But is there a solution to everything? My answer is always. Are there multiple solutions to everything? Always. How do I come about that? And what I want to do, Marcia, is work with those in what I call critical thinking. That let's think into and think through this, and let's discover the facts and factors. I want to help a person overcome, we frequently refer to it as doom and gloom, but oh, come on, folks. My attitude is, and I don't want to come across that, hey, come on, what's the matter with you kind of thing, but let's think into this. And so now, here's what I like to do, Marcia. And that, yes, I'm inheriting, so to speak. If I'm interviewing somebody in the workforce, who knows, they're 20, 30 something years old. So they've been in an environment for 2-3 decades. I'm not going to change them with one conversation. It's going to take some time. But am I willing to work with these folks to help them with critical thinking, to help transition a mindset out of, you know, I just don't think we can work through this. And, but I'm going to help that person think through this and say, well, let's just see if there is a possibility of a solution. And Marcia, I want to help work with that person. And I think that if I have the perseverance and the persistency in working with these kind of people, eventually we can. Now, I'm going to back up just a little bit and say that in the very beginning, I hope that through my interviewing, I have the right people with a let's say a coachable, teachable, trainable mindset. There's some people who are not. I can promise you, there's some people who say, well, you know, nope. And to that, I'd have to say, well, I tell you what, I care enough about you that I'm going to try to find the right place for you. I just don't think that right here in this company with this culture, my mindset is the right place for you. I'll do the very best I can to find the best place for you. But in interviewing, Marcia, what I try to do is I first and foremost, I want to know your values. I want to know how you think, what you think. And then even if you don't have the experience that I would like to have, if you're trainable and teachable, I'll bring you in and I'll teach you and train you because I know you're going to fit in my culture. And so those are just some of the things, Marcia, and I can sense that you and I each would be, oh gosh, man, come on, we got to get on with this. And I just don't have the time to, well, it's not waste per se, but I'm willing to work with you for as much as I can. But in the back of your mind, you're saying, well, this may not be the right person. And I want to be very candid, very honest, but I want that person to know that I'm not dumping and leaving them. I'm going to do the best I can to find the right place for you, but right here appears not to be the best place for you. So, Marcia, just some thoughts that perhaps we can cultivate and expand on.
We had a couple of situations where we had temporary positions where young people came in to do a specific task. And there was this one young man who had a great attitude, but yet when he got to a certain point, you could tell he was stymied. And, you know, Rick and I worked with him. And after he left that individual job, he said, I want you to know that your high expectations of me taught me a lot about professionalism. that we never learned in college. We didn't learn the attitude of professionalism in college. And so that's something that's, we're kind of intense about. What is professionalism? And if you want to be a professional, then come on board, but there's a lot of people who really, they don't want to push themselves.
Well, in fact, we found that the person that's worked the best, that we trust most, actually skipped college. And I grew up in a college. I was born on a college campus. I grew up in one and didn't go. I actually started working for one of the professors and ended up grading for him. So I sort of skipped the whole thing, became one of the teachers. But yes, it really taught me two things. One, a lot of young people aren't getting taught what I think they need to be taught. But also, it's taught me how the real value of experience. I do a lot of different things. That's just in my nature and what I've done, and that's actually become very important, because in doing the project that we have, it's a little more like being a fighter pilot, test pilot, because I'm taking something that exists. Airplanes have always existed, but I'm trying to get it to do something that's never done before. And so the experience I have with all these different projects have come to a real focus in this. And you can't teach experience, but you can find the right people that value your experience that you can work with. And that is a hiring thing. I think what Bob was talking about and stuff, a lot of this problem can be solved by hiring the right person. And that again comes from experience of being able to tell what kind of person that is. An example I have that I really love, some of the other people here have heard this, was I was back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, I was a general contractor of Jackson, Mississippi. And we kept having problems with the people that were working with, the guys that we hired. And even to the point of some of them that have been around a long time, we caught them going to the pawn shop with our tools. And we had to get this job done. I mean, in fact, there was a job to be done. We had to have it done by a certain amount of time, and or we're going to lose the house. And so we were wondering, what are we going to do? And we just happened to be with my partner, and we went to pick up his sister at high school. And it was right at the end of their school year, and they were complaining about they were going to have jobs as waitresses. And they didn't want to do that. I thought, well, can y'all do sheetrock or hang, you can hammer a nail? And they said, I don't know, I can learn. And well, long story short, they were so good at doing it. They had the right attitude. What I saw is, okay, they don't exactly look like your regular construction person, but their attitude overrid all that. I mean, can
learn. I love that.
They wanted to. They loved doing it. They loved the fact that they could do it and other people couldn't. I mean, all across the board, any angle you can think of, they were absolutely the best at it. They showed up on time, got the job done, listened to what you said when you're training them, did the job right. And years later, they told me that when they had their own houses, that they appreciated all the knowledge they had about houses. So if they ever had to hire somebody, they could do it themselves most of the time. But if they had to hire somebody, they could stand over and really watch and make sure they were doing it right. It was, so you had to have an open mind in that situation. That's where you have to kind of see past the norm and take on a new situation. And necessity was part of the mother of that situation, but it taught me a lot about hiring. I mean, to me, so much of this is a hiring thing. Like fighter pilots, you have a washout when you're going through training school. There's washout. I mean, I've got 3 nephews that went through Ranger School. The best class they had was 17% that made it through it. And that's where you eliminate a lot of that problem. It doesn't get all of it, but it gets.
Well, our time is running out, but with everyone's permission, why don't we go for another 5 minutes or so, because we haven't gotten Green Sensei involved or Aram. Corey, I know you've got something you want to share or a question you want to ask.
Well, you know, since I've been teaching for the past 25 years, I have the unique experience to be able to see the change of the way people were before the internet, then the age of the cell phone and everything else since. And what I've sensed and I'm experiencing over and over again is the men that are coming through the school, even when they're 20 or 25 or 30, they're not the same men I knew when I was my age. They're not the same people. And they're weaker in a lot of ways. So I have to build them up and make them stronger. And that's a tough process because no one else seems to be doing it in their life. And that's unfortunate because we need strong men. We need people to lead others. And if you take out the strong men, then there's no leadership in a sense. I know women can lead too. I'm not saying that, but it has to be both. And I keep dealing with that. And yesterday I had this kid who came in and he signed up and all that. And he's been training for just a little bit. And the kid has no respect for what I'm doing. And I'm teaching him how to block a punch, you know, and he's supposed to punch me one time in the face, just one time. I do the block. Here comes another punch at my face. He's not listening. I didn't like the fact that he didn't listen carefully to instructions. So what I did was when he punched at me, I blocked, I went forward, I punched him. And I punched him just hard enough so he could feel it in his solar plexus to where he woke up and realized, wait a second, this is real. This is not Cobra Kai, what I saw on TV. Now, speaking of TV, Ron, I realized that you're a legend. You're absolute legend because Maverick and Iceman from Top Gun both got shot at. They got bullets, but you never got hit once. So that's just amazing. By the way, did you know Chuck Yeager?
Yes, know him very well.
Very good. That's one of my books reading when I grew up about him breaking the sound barrier, and I thought it'd be great to meet him, but may he rest in peace.
Yeah. Glenn, I'll maybe close out with this. Corey, Rick, and Marcia spoke about some very important attributes of good leadership. That is caring about people. Corey just described that, hey, you're not responding well, but here's what I can do to help you respond better. I think Rick and Marcia said much the same thing, that yes, the interviewing process, that's one thing, but the other thing that we as leaders know, that people frequently will live up to the expectations we set for them. Frequently, not always, but frequently will. The other thing is that people frequently, not always, but frequently do what they see. In that context, we as leaders need to set the right expectations. We need to set the standards, and there are times we can't demand it, but we hope that people will measure up to those expectations. Dan, I think that relates to your comments and questions, but in the context that people frequently, but not always, measure up to the expectations, we set the expectations while wanting to help adjust them, adjust the attitude, if you will, that I'm going to help you develop it, but if you show me that you're not willing, then, quite honestly, I can't waste my time. So yes, I want to assess the kind of person you are. And if you show me that you're willing to adjust to our culture here, I'm willing to invest the time in you because I value you. And I hope that you can respect me in turn. But in the context of respect and admiration, I'm a believer I have to first give it. When I do give it, that it will come in return. So without taking an excessive amount of time, boy, I love this kind of conversation, Glenn. Man, who knows? We can cultivate this and go into much more depth and really take this in productive ways.
Well, actually, I was thinking this is actually a leadership lesson. And I like, I think it was President Dwight Eisenhower, who was also a very renowned Army general, described leadership as an art, which art requires practice. And I think his quote went something like this: leadership is getting others to do something you want them to do because they want to do it. In other words, they buy into your idea. And would you say that one of the keys to good leadership is that first, the leader must learn to lead himself before he can lead others? Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the short answer to that is I must be aware of who I am. And I must be confident enough that I can share that with you. So, and I'm not everything to everybody, and I certainly have weaknesses. I just need to be willing to acknowledge that and surround myself with people who compliment me.
And, you know, it ties right in with something that Coach Dan teaches so often. It's kind of a common thread in any time he teaches this. And we need to set up a time for you to speak to the group again, Dan. In fact, what about in 2 weeks? Will you be in town?
I love the recruitment that happens here, Glenn. You're a master at what you do. I would love to share
well, let me know the title, and we'll put it out there, and we'll get some more. Get everyone aware that the Coach Dan will be speaking. And where I was going was that in addition to discipline, right at the core of anything that Dan teaches us is the importance of your core values. And that basically is the filter everything you do should go through. And it ties right in with something that you were saying, Ron, about people do what people see. So a leader has to know his core values. He's got to stick by them. In other words, you've heard the phrase, the good leaders talk the talk, but they also walk the walk. And that's what's so important. Whether you're leading people in the business world or you're leading a family, I've seen so many cases where children blurt out things that maybe embarrass their parents by what they say or what they do, but yet it's something they saw at home. Folks, it's been an absolute pleasure to be with each of you. Does anyone have a burning desire to just add one more little last comment?
I'd like to say a lot of fighter pilots, and it's nice to know another one. I years ago, I used to do a lot of military shows, doing artwork for them, and I got to be good friends with people like Ben Drew, who was Urban Drew. He was a P-51 pilot in Ace in World War II, and he was actually the first guy to shoot down a jet, 2 of them, as a matter of fact. And so it's just nice to meet another one.
Hey, and Ron, join us even when you're not speaking. Yeah, we would love to have you as a part of our group.
Yeah, well,
thank you. And yes, I will. Yes, I will. And I'm going to reflect back to what Bob said. I don't know. Can you accept me and my very crass personality?
You fit right in here. You fit right in here. And Kelly just typed a message in. I would love to hear Dan talk about his mindset, his discipline. I taught a Bible study Saturday, and we explored what the words obedience and discipline mean to us, what the words may bring back from our past, and reframing, etc. So maybe that'll give you some ideas of something that might be good to expand on, Dan. Just surprise us. Let me know what the title's going to be, and we'll put it out to the world. Thank you so much, Ron and Marty. Marty, I'm sorry you had to drop off. Maybe we bored you to death and the men got to monopolizing, but yet we had some good female input today from Kelly and from Marcia, and thank you so much. Mark the date down. That's 2 weeks from today, which will be, what will it be? Has anyone got their calendar up? That will be March the 2nd.
Oh, March 2nd.
March the 2nd, I believe. So we'll have Coach Dan speaking on, I don't know, we'll learn soon. Folks, thank you so much. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. I learned so much from you. I've learned so much from you, Ron and Marty. Thank you so much. Again, from the bottom of my heart, remember, folks, your day will be just as good as your vision. I love you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Bye, y'all. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you, everybody.